Hi, my name's Fallon. I'm here today with Chegg Tutors to talk to you about cultural relativism. So basically what cultural relativism is viewing the beliefs, values, and practices of a culture from its own viewpoint. So another way to say this is that an individual person's beliefs and activities should be understood by others in terms of that person's own culture. This idea, is prominent in all social sciences and is especially important when studying other cultures. It's generally an attempt to avoid ethnocentrism or judging another culture solely by the values and standards of your own personal culture. And it's particularly helpful when trying to avoid cultural bias in research and sociology. An example of this is in France. People drink wine with basically every meal, and sometimes they even allow children to drink wine. Now, if you're viewing this from an ethnocentric point of view in terms of the US culture, that seems outlandish and maybe even morally wrong. But if you view this practice in terms of French culture and customs, then it's perfectly fine and to them doesn't cause any irreparable harm. So, another example that I have up here for you of cultural relativism is this cartoon. So if you're from US culture, you're probably pretty familiar with our view of the way certain Islamic Muslim women dress. And you're probably also familiar with our US standards of dress, particularly for women. And this cartoon kind of sums up cultural relativism nicely because both of these women are actually being ethnocentric. They're viewing the other woman's clothing in terms of their own cultural beliefs and practices. So the woman, I'm just going to call her American for the purposes of this explanation. The American woman in the bikini walking down the street looks at the Muslim woman in her dress and says, "Everything is covered but her eyes, what a cruel male-dominated culture." So she is viewing that woman's clothing choices as a product, through the lens of her own American culture, which does not fit the culture that that woman is a part of. And the Muslim woman is looking back at the American woman and saying, "Nothing covered but her eyes, what a cruel male-dominated culture." So she is also being ethnocentric and looking at the other woman in terms of her own culture, as opposed to both of these women looking at the other and saying, "Oh, the way that she's dressing is a product of her own cultural beliefs and views," which is cultural relativism. So to sum up, cultural relativism is the practice of viewing the beliefs, values, and practices of a culture from its own viewpoint, rather than being ethnocentric and viewing the beliefs, values, and practices of a culture from your own viewpoint. It was developed by Franz Boas in the early 20th century as an anthropologist. And another way to look at cultural relativism is to say that an individual's beliefs and activities should be understood by others in terms of that individual's own culture. So, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me or another tutor on Chegg Tutors. Thank you so much.